Okay, we are live.
Thank you, Lauren. We're gonna start in about 30 seconds here. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another one of our amazing STEMCon X events. My name is Joe Warner. I'm the Math Content Specialist for the Agua Fria High School District, and I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our presenters today. Jenny Frank is the Education Outreach Coordinator for the Maricopa County Air Quality Department. Jenny developed Up in the Air, a nationally recognized air pollution education program for elementary students. She is a certified teacher and was a finalist for the 2014 Most Dedicated STEM Teacher, the STEM Superhero Award. Jenny believes that educating and empowering the next generation of environmental stewards is the key to solving the air pollution problem in Maricopa County. We also have Catrice Swenson, who is the Education Outreach Associate for the Maricopa County Air Quality Department. Catrice was instrumental in developing Be Air Aware, a nationally recognized program for non-formal educators that has impacted more than 4,000 students in Maricopa County. Prior to this role, Catrice served as a high school environmental science teacher and as an environmental health specialist for the Maricopa County Environmental Services Department. As a registered sanitarian, hopefully I pronounced that right, Catrice believes collaboration and education is key to improving our local environment. I'm gonna pass it along to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction today. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our virtual STEAM event. I'm Catrice Swenson, the Education Outreach Associate for the Maricopa County Air Quality Department, and we were so excited to be here today for Agua Fria's STEMCon event. In years past, we've been at the in-person event, and I believe a lot of our experts who are here today have also been to the in-person event. So we're very excited that we can continue the tradition here virtually with you. So what our STEM event is, or STEAM event is all about is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And when you put all of those things together, it creates STEAM. So it's kind of a collaboration of all those different disciplines. Today, we're going to talk about all things STEAM, from A, air quality, to Z, the Phoenix Zoo. And many times we're using STEAM and we don't even realize it. For example, you're probably using a computer or a phone or a tablet right now. We might even be projected, and we're also using speakers, microphones. All of that is technology, and all of that's making this experience possible today. I personally use STEAM every day in my job to educate the public about air quality and simple actions that we can all take to help keep the air clean. For example, we use technology to measure the amount of pollution in the air, and we use the arts to communicate that to people through our air quality index. So you can really easily use a chart and colors in order to tell what the air quality is in your neighborhood. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and be passing this on to our wonderful experts to share all about what they do in their jobs and how they use STEAM in order to make their jobs possible. We're going to have each of our partners just for a couple of minutes share about their organizations, and as they speak about their jobs, feel free to type any questions that you have into the Mentimeter. I believe the information for that was just displayed on the screen, and that information should also be on the same page you used to get the link for today. And we will have a question and answer back and forth so that you can actually have your questions answered by the experts. So first up is my colleague, Jenny Frank, who's going to teach us a little bit more about air quality. And Jenny, if you could unmute for us, so sorry.
Oh, thank you, Catrice. I know I would do that at least one time today, right? So thank you for the introduction. I'm Jenny Frank, the Education Outreach Coordinator for the Maricopa County Air Quality Department. And on the screen, you'll see a slide, which is our virtual exhibit. So what the Maricopa County Air Quality Department does is that we permit businesses, we regulate businesses, and we are responsible for ensuring that the federal health standards, the clean air standards that are set forth in the Clean Air Act are achieved and maintained, so that we have a healthy environment, that we have healthy air that's not polluted for everyone to breathe. So that's basically the mission and vision for our department. I work in education outreach, and my job is to communicate to the public simple actions everyone can take to help keep the air clean. But we have a variety of different roles within our department. We have permitting engineers who look at emissions inventories, and they permit businesses, they write those permits. We have planning and analysis folks who are also looking at the emissions inventory and looking to see, do our rules and regulations need to be revised? Are we meeting those goals? Are we meeting those health standards? We have inspectors who go out to those businesses that we permit and we regulate, and they make sure that the businesses are following the rules and regulations that are on their permit. And then we also have our outreach and communications. We have our travel reduction program, because a great deal of the air pollution in Maricopa County doesn't come from businesses we permit. It actually comes from everyday citizens doing everyday things like driving to work or idling in a line at the McDonald's drive-thru, for example, burning wood on a no burn day. So a lot of different and simple actions that everyone can take to help protect our air. Well, why does it matter? So you might not really think about how much air you're breathing in, because breathing is something that you do automatically. You don't have to think about it to make it happen. But you actually breathe in about 8 to 10 liters of air every single minute. And if you multiply that times 60 minutes in an hour and 24 hours in a day, that really adds up to a lot of air. And we know that people with asthma, anyone with, say, a heart or lung disease, and even very young children or the elderly are going to have a very hard time breathing if we have a lot of pollution in the air. So it's really important to keep that pollution down. Now, the Environmental Protection Agency defines an air pollutant as any substance in the air that can cause harm to human health or the environment, which includes plants and animals. And some of the pollutants, I mean, if you've ever seen that like haze over downtown Phoenix, that's air pollution and you can see it. But some air pollutants like ground level ozone, you don't see and don't smell them. So you may not even be aware that they're in the air. So we've got a little video here on our virtual exhibit that shows you how air pollution can build up over time. And these pictures were taken on New Year's Day, 2016. Think about what people like to do around the holidays. And I don't know if that's running yet. A little bit of a lag time there, maybe. Okay, there we go. So this is starting off in the morning as the sun's coming up on New Year's Day. And you can see there's already a little bit of haze, but as the morning progresses, you can see how that pollution just built up and built up. And you can also see how it's hovering down near the ground. So that was due to a weather event called a temperature inversion, which traps all of that pollution down near the ground where people were breathing it in. And we know that it impacted people's health because several days after this event, we saw an increase in admissions to emergency rooms and urgent cares, and people going in because they were having respiratory problems, especially people with asthma, as I mentioned before. So I don't know about you, but I would not want to be breathing in the air that I'm looking at right there. So if you think about, well, what caused that on New Year's Day, a lot of people like to burn wood in fire pits or fireplaces over the holidays to make it festive, and they light off fireworks near the ground. And so all of that smoke just built up and created that pollution event that you see there. So there are a lot of simple actions everyone can take to help reduce air pollution. Many of them revolve around driving, reducing your automobile car trips. So things such as carpooling with a friend, taking mass transit like the bus or the light rail. And one that's been very popular this year, teleworking, which I'm doing right now and Catrice is doing right now. Many of us are. That reduces trips, and that reduces the emissions that come out of tailpipes, and things like parking a car and going inside of a restaurant or a drugstore rather than sitting in a long drive-through line idling your car. If you can, park and go inside. So those are some simple things that everyone can do to help protect the air. A little bit of information on that. And also, if you go to our virtual exhibit, you'll be provided with a link to access all the exhibits. All of the objects on there are clickable. They'll take you to more information about a specific topic. So if you click on the lungs, that will take you to more information on the health effects of air pollution. So you can see that pop up right there. So that gives you some information on respiratory effects and cardiovascular effects. And I invite you to visit our new escape room, which you can also learn a little bit more about air pollution and other tips to help reduce it. So thank you so much, Catrice, and I'll send it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenny, for sharing all of that about air quality. Super important stuff. As she kind of mentioned towards the link for this has been shared. However, we invite you right now to kind of stay tuned with us. And then at the end of today's event, we're going to give a little bit of time for you to independently explore all the different exhibits. And at that time, you'll be able to click on the different objects and videos to learn more about all of the different topics that our experts are talking about today. So wonderful. Thank you again, Jenny. Next up, Ellen, if you could teach us a little bit about what the Flood Control District does.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here this morning, Catrice and Jenny, and to the Agua Fria District. And thank you everybody for joining us here. My name is Ellen Spielman, and I am the Outreach Coordination Liaison for the Flood Control District. And many people, when I tell them I work for flood control, say, but we're in Phoenix, we're in Arizona, it's the desert, it doesn't flood. Actually, it does flood, and it floods really badly here. So if you've been in the valley for any length of time, our last 2 monsoon seasons have been pretty mild. We haven't had a lot of rains, but typically we do. And you'll notice the floods that we get, and our roads get flooded, our basins get flooded. At Flood Control, our main mission is to protect our homes and properties and our citizens from those floods. We have lots of different STEM careers that work in our offices. We have planners who work with the community. They do studies, figure out where that flooding is happening. We have the only licensed meteorologist in the county, working for the county, in our office. So he's great. He and his team watch the weather. We have rain gauges all over the valley, all over the county, figure out where the biggest rains are happening and determine if we need to work with emergency management on any issues that might be arising. We have engineers who then take the information from the planners and design and build different structures. So we have dams that surround the county on the outskirts, and then within the county, you'll notice basins and channels, canals, all that to kind of keep the water flowing away from the homes, but flowing back to the rivers and streams where that water belongs. We also have inspectors that go out. We want to make sure that all of those structures are still structurally sound, make sure that they don't fail in those heavy storms. So we have inspectors that go out and inspect all of those. And then of course, we have people that need to build those structures. So lots and lots of different things. We also have a landscape architect department because we like to make those structures multi-use. So a lot of those basins are parks. We like to make them green for the environment, doing the best that we can to make sure that whatever we do plant in there is native to Arizona and can sustain the floods as well as the times when it doesn't flood. So I'm going to ask Catrice, on our slide, we have a little video. I'm just going to ask Catrice to play maybe let's just go through the first one today, Catrice. Excuse me, of the natural environment.
Hello, my name is Ellen, and I am the Outreach Coordinator here at the Flood Control District of Maricopa County. And I am going to show you why flooding is a problem in Maricopa County and what we here at Flood Control do to help keep our citizens and our property safe from those floods. So we have our flood model here, and our first scenario is going to show what happens when it rains in the natural environment. So before all of these houses were built in Phoenix, we had lots of desert land, and we still have quite a bit, but we have covered that up with our homes and our streets and our stores. But this is going to go way back in time before all of that was here. And when it would rain in the desert, over those natural surfaces, that dirt, the rainwater would get soaked up into the ground, and then when the ground got too wet or too saturated, that water would start to flow out and it would go into our streams and rivers. We call those our floodways. But it's coming out slowly and it's staying where it needs to stay in those rivers and streams and away from our homes. So we had residents that were building their homes near the water because they needed it for their crops, their vegetation, their animals, and just for their everyday living. But everybody was kept safe. However,
That's good, Catrice. Thank
people
you.
started to move to the field.
All right. So if you want to see why now it floods, because we've taken away that dirt, and then how we fix that, when you have time to explore, you can go ahead and finish watching that video. I also have some resources over here. If you click on our logo, there are some resources. There's some fun activities to do. Right now, you'll see that it says it's really geared towards 3rd through 5th grade students, but really there's just some fun activities to do, and you can adjust it a little bit. And maybe if you're older than 3rd through 5th grade, you can get a little bit more creative with some of those activities. So feel free to look at that. Check out our website. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ellen. I am super excited to find out why it floods in the desert. So I'm definitely going to have to go back and watch the rest of that video at the end of this. Great. Thank you again, Ellen. Next up, we have Amy Oliver, who's going to teach us a little bit about what she does with the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory.
Great. Thank you so much, Catrice. I'm so happy to be here. So you guys, the Whipple Observatory, if anyone out there has ever heard of the Smithsonian Institution, it's those big museums on the East Coast of the United States. But the Smithsonian does a lot more than museums. We also have 9 science research divisions, and I work at one of those divisions. And astrophysics means that we are looking out into space. So we're thinking about exoplanets, which means planets outside of our own solar system. And we're thinking about stars and nebulae and black holes, you know, very creepy stuff, things that go bump in space. Okay, so that's the kind of things that we're looking at. And Catrice, if you want to go ahead and hit that top video on the left, it'll give you guys an overview of Whipple Observatory and kind of what we do. If it'll play.
Hi there. My name is
Oh,
Amy
there's no
Fiallo,
sound.
and I'm the Visitor and Science Center Manager at the.
Let me try again. Thank you. Let me make sure that I'm sharing my sound. All right.
I think it's okay. I think it just was, I think it's lagging.
Okay, perfect. Let me try one more time.
Fred Lawrence Whipple Observatory in Amato, Arizona. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Whipple Observatory is the largest field site of the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory and is part of the Center for Astrophysics, Harvard and Smithsonian. Our observatory was first established in 1968 with one telescope searching the night skies for evidence of Terra Electron Volt, or TeV, gamma rays. We found the evidence of those gamma rays in 1989, hiding out in the Crab Nebula. Since then, we've really upped the game on our research and our telescopes. The MMT Observatory, with its 6.5 meter diameter mirror, is currently the 14th largest optical telescope in the world, and nightly can be found conducting spectroscopy and optical astronomy, as well as other scientific research. Down at our Ridge complex, you'll find more than 20 telescopes searching for exoplanets and engaging in other studies like stellar metallicity, supernovae catalogs, and more. Down at Base Camp, you'll find we now have 4 gamma ray telescopes known collectively as Veritas, or the Very Energetic Radiation Imaging Telescope Array System. These telescopes are still searching the night for evidence of gamma rays, but are also involved in other scientific studies, including most recently measuring the apparent diameter of the smallest stars in the night sky using asteroid occultation. No, really. Out in our backyard, you'll find the PSCT, or the Prototype Schwarzschild.
If you want to go ahead and stop that, Catrice.
Pathfinder.
I encourage you all to go ahead and watch that whole video the whole way through so you can learn a little bit more about all of our telescopes, because we have more than 30 telescopes at our observatory. So the video goes on for a little while. But when we're talking about those types of science, you know, it sounds like a lot of really big words, but there are things that you can do at home to learn that same basis for science. So when you have an opportunity at home, you'll want to click on the video below that one so that you can learn about non-Newtonian fluids and then get access to some of our other science. And all of these other items here on the right will also take you to resources where you can learn about the night sky, how to find stars, and learn a little bit more about what we do. So Arizona is this beautiful place for scientific research and astronomy. And we are known as, our observatories are collectively known as sky islands. And that's because we're usually located on a mountain high above city lights. Okay, so you guys live a little bit closer to a city, but I'm out in the middle of nowhere. There are no cities really where I live and where I work. So it's a really interesting place to do astronomy. And just like we're talking about, you wouldn't think it would flood here. When you live in a really big city, you wouldn't think that someone could do astronomical research just a few hours from a big city.
That's so interesting. Thank you so much. I know I'm always so interested in space and learning about space. And what's really cool is even with technology, there's so many different avenues within the type of research and things that you do. But Amy's also able to join us today, even though she's located a little bit outside Tucson area, and so kind of far away, and yet she's able to join us today through video chat. So really cool ways that we're able to stay connected and learn about everything all throughout Arizona. So awesome. Thank you so much. I know I already have a question in my head that I want to ask you during our question and answer session. If anyone else has questions for our experts, I'm going to invite you to ask those through the Mentimeter that's for this session, and then we'll get to those after everyone has a chance to introduce themselves. The Mentimeter code is 6675010. So again, that's 6675010. So feel free to keep those questions coming in so we can answer all your questions today. Awesome. Next up, we have Eric Proctor, who's going to talk to us about what he does for the Arizona Game and Fish Department.
Thank you, Catrice, and I'll model after everyone else. Thank you for the Agua Fria School District and everyone else that's watching today. Very pleased to be here to share kind of the great work that the Arizona Game and Fish Department does. If you're not familiar with who we are a state government agency, but we are responsible for managing all of Arizona's wildlife species. So there are more than 800 species of animals that are native to Arizona that we are responsible for managing. And so we have to make sure that those populations are doing okay, that there's not too many of them or there's not too few of them. And then depending on where that population is, we have to implement different strategies. And we could not do that without a lot of the partners that we use. Some of are on this call as well. We've actually worked with the Maricopa County Flood Control. I believe we have some of their flood channels are bat homes and some other stuff. We work with the Phoenix Zoo. We work with Liberty Wildlife, who's on this call as well. To all these parts couldn't do what we do. Are black-footed ferrets, which is one of the most endangered mammals in all of North America. In fact, they've been declared extinct twice, but in each case, there's been some populations that have been discovered from them. Their populations are so low, though, that we have to implement captive breeding programs to help get them. So we breed them in captive locations such as zoos, like the Phoenix Zoo being one of those. And then once we've got a certain number of population out, we can actually start to release them. And we have to do all sorts of different studies to see what's the best way to release them, the best time of year do we release them. We've actually, interestingly, Arizona's been one of the first places to release pregnant females so that the babies are born in the wild and have sort of those natural characteristics that are out there. We were one of the first places in the country that actually implemented that strategy that was kind of learned here. We have other challenges that we have to do that incorporate some of these STEM fields we've been talking about. One of our biggest ones is highway management. We build a new highway or we expand a highway that cuts through an animal's habitat. So the animal gets stuck with perhaps food on one side of the highway and its shelter on the other side of the highway. So it's constantly crossing the road, and that causes a number of problems, issues for the wildlife. They can get hit by the cars, and that can also cause a public safety issue as well. If you hit an 800-pound bull elk, for example, with full antlers with your car, that's going to not only be dangerous for the animal, but it's going to be dangerous for your car as well as for yourself. And so we have to find strategies to help connect those two sides of the habitat across the highway by constructing bridges or underpasses. In order to do that, we have to study animal movements, which requires a lot of mapping, which requires technology of radio telemetry and various things like that. So I like to tell people that yes, Game and Fish is a wildlife. We're a biological agency, but there's depending on what you like to do, that we have everybody. We have lawyers. We publish our own magazines, so we have writers and artists and graphic designers. We have our own TV show. We have accountants. We have educators like myself. We actually have police officers. Our wildlife managers, which make up a big bulk of what we do, are certified police officers. So they are responsible for a certain part of the state, and they have to make sure that people are following all the wildlife laws and the outdoor recreation laws that are in place. I'm lucky because as an educator, I get to tell Game and Fish's story, and we're kind of a lot of people don't know about us and don't know about a lot of this work that we do. We kind of do all this work behind the scenes, and people don't know about it. So I get to work with our biologists, go out in the field with them, and then find great ways to bring those to students and educators so that we can show off all the great work that the department is doing. We are one of the leading wildlife agencies in the country, which is and so we have a lot of great stories to tell. You can see my slide is up there as well. I'm not going to go through all of it. I'll let you kind of explore on your own, but there's a lot of different things in there, including our Adopt a Tortoise program. So if you were to click on the tortoise when you get a chance there, you can learn all about how to adopt a desert tortoise. Now, there are some requirements for that, but this is an important program for us because tortoises, once they're taken from the wild, they can't be released back in the wild. This is something that this is that nut that we have not been able to crack. We haven't figured out how to put tortoises back in the wild once they've been removed. There's some logistics and some challenges that they carry a disease sometimes that they can spread to wild populations. And so it's a challenge right now for us to figure out how to put them back. So in the meantime, anytime a tortoise is removed from the wild, which unfortunately people will go out in the wild, they'll go hiking and they see a cool tortoise and they think it's okay and they take it home, and they can't do that. So we work with organizations that will help us adopt those tortoises out. We have information on that about how you can get a tortoise for your yard and stuff like that. But I look forward to sticking around and answering any questions people might have about wildlife or what it's like to work in Game and Fish or in education and like that. So thank you, guys.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Eric. That's a really great program. And I know you have some really fun activities on your slide too, if you click some of the different objects. So later on when we have that time to explore, definitely check out their booth that they have here. Awesome. All right. Next up, we have Laura Hackett, who's joining us from Liberty Wildlife.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having us here today. I love that we are following Arizona Game and Fish because we do work very closely, like Eric said, with Arizona Game and Fish. We get our permits from them. We also have to get permits from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, so the federal level of getting permits. But we are, Liberty Wildlife is a nonprofit wildlife rescue, rehabilitation, and education center. So this is actually our 40th year. We've been working in the Valley for 40 years now and started off as a tiny little rehab facility in our vet's backyard up in North Scottsdale, where that first year she took in about 80 native animals that were injured, sick, orphaned, and just needed to be taken care of a little while before they could be released back out into the wild. We've grown a lot in those 40 years to the point where we finally outgrew that location. It was just over an acre of land. So we had to build a whole new facility, and we're just south of Sky Harbor Airport now, so nice and centrally located. And not only do we still have our hospital, but we also have an education side where people can come to visit during our open hours, and we can do field trips. Currently, we're doing smaller field trips. We're doing a lot of virtual education programs like this, where we bring animals out. And we're just staying really, really busy with what we call nurturing the nature of Arizona. That's our mission. We took in over 12,000 animals last year to rehabilitate and release back out into the wild. Most people know us for birds. This tiny but mighty little American kestrel right here is one that came to us actually not knowing that he was a wild kestrel. I'll bring him closer. This is Vito, and he was brought into us with a friend in a parakeet cage. And it was an actual parakeet, which is kind of crazy because kestrels are bird eaters. So he obviously has no real clue. He's what we call imprinted. So he doesn't really know what it's like to be a wild bird. So he would not survive on his own and know how to hunt for himself. So he's an education bird. So we bring him out to meet people and get you that close. So yes, most people know us for birds of prey. But as you can see behind me, and not too close to Vito, we've got Elmer the gopher snake. We take in all kinds of native wildlife. So we'll take in reptiles, we'll take in snakes, lizards, we've taken in tarantulas, we'll take in all kinds of mammals. We've had bobcats, coyotes, coatimundis, ring-tailed cats, a little bit of everything really, and rehabilitate them. Now, Elmer came to us and he got the name Elmer because he was stuck to a glue trap when he first came in. He was a super tiny little baby. And those glue traps are something we educate against because they really will catch all the wildlife. It's meant for catching the unwanted, supposedly, that some people think maybe crickets or spiders. Well, the problem with that is that lots of animals live off of those. They need those to survive. So when they see those bugs caught on a glue trap, they think it's free lunch. So then a lizard will come and try and eat that bug, and then it'll get stuck. And then a bird will come down and try and eat that lizard, and it will get stuck. And then a snake like Elmer there says, wow, look, there's a whole lunchbox right there. And he tries to eat, then he gets stuck. So we've actually had the entire food web on a glue trap before. So unfortunately, when we did take him off, his scales were a little injured, so we had to rehabilitate him. And it's very hard to relocate reptiles back into the wild after they've been in hospital care for a while. So he became an education animal. So if you check out our slide in a little bit, there's a whole lot of information about who we are, what we do, how you can come visit us. We've got a couple of different videos. You see the cute coatimundi right there is Brute. He was somebody's pet illegally, so he's never lived out in the wild. And so he's come to stay with us and has since learned to walk on a leash. So there's a cute little video of him. If you look at the other pictures, you see an owl flying. You can learn a little bit more about the owls that we have around here. There are actually 13 different species of owls that live in Arizona. That one right there is the great horned owl. And then the bunnies and the baby bird pictures are just a little bit more videos on what we're expecting to come visit us soon. It is spring. So that is when all the babies are going to start being born. It's also when a lot of people start trimming their trees for some reason. So it's another thing we try to educate people to not trim during baby season. We get a lot of nests that fall from those trees, and then the babies have to be raised by us. We also get a lot of baby bunnies because people think they've been left by their parents, but actually mama bunnies do not stay with their babies all the time. They hide them away, usually under a little piece of grass or tucked away in a little cove somewhere, and don't come back except to feed them every now and then and run away when you approach. So a lot of times people bring bunnies to us thinking they were abandoned, but really it was just mom was trying to lure you away or trying to get away from the babies. So those are just some great videos there to show you what life looks like here at Liberty Wildlife soon. So I look forward to you guys checking out our slide and asking any questions when it's time. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laura. What you do is so important for helping all of those animals that are out there that have been abandoned, or again, maybe people that take in animals and think that they're making pets and they don't. And so there has been one question asked in the chat. However, I'm going to wait till the very end and then we'll ask all of those questions at once. So one more reminder that if you have any questions for us, we'd love to answer them. You can do that through the Mentimeter. The code for this is 6675010. So ask your questions in Mentimeter and we'll get to those at the end. But thank you, Laura, for teaching us a little more and having your friend join us today. Wonderful. Next up, we have Tyler, who's joining us, going to talk a little bit about what he does here for Grand Canyon University in the engineering department.
Hello. Yes, thank you so much for letting me join. And there are some amazing presenters today. So who I am and what I do, my name's Tyler. I work within Grand Canyon University's College of Science, Engineering, and Technology. My role is our program development specialist. I work to support our incoming students and really mentor them as well as counsel them in what career path they want to go down, which program that we offer that be best for them. And so I work with our Associate Dean of Engineering, Dr. Jeanette Berlin-Finari. Her background is in mechanical engineering and specifically automotive engineering, as well as our Assistant Dean, Dr. Richard Molsky. His background is in aerospace manufacturing. And so a part of my role, like I said, is to really support our incoming students to be well equipped for our programs. And I just wanted to present today on a couple key tips that I talk with a lot of our incoming students of how to really prepare yourself. And this is helpful not just for engineering programs, but many STEM programs. I would say number one, if you're in high school, I highly encourage you to, if you're going into engineering, to take calculus and physics. That is more than the foundations for engineering. That is just the starting point. And that's very helpful for students coming into programs like ours and other engineering programs at other universities when they have that type of experience. But also if you have a engineering class, a robotics club, a biology club, a STEM club, I highly encourage you to get involved as much as you can outside the classroom to get as much exposure to what you would be interested in. And you attending this event today is actually a perfect example of that. As far as another thing that I come across with our students a lot is that when meeting our incoming class, there's times where I notice students that they don't even know what they should really ask me or our faculty when it comes to our programs. How should they be setting a game plan throughout their whole time at GCU? Because a part of the reason is that they just don't know what they don't know. And so whenever I talk with students, I usually give them a few key questions to ask Grand Canyon University or any other university if you're considering engineering or STEM programs. And I would say the most important question to ask any engineering program or any STEM program from any university or college is, how hands-on of an experience am I going to receive from this program and your university? When it comes to engineering, but STEM as a whole, it's a beautiful thing to be in an applied science career. And especially for engineers, calculus, physics, differential equations, transport phenomena, thermodynamics, fluid mechanics, all of these theories and equations students learn, they're learning them because they're meant to be tools as an engineer. Just as a hammer is a tool, a computer is a tool, it's important that students have a hands-on experience. All of us in higher education love to say we have hands-on training, hands-on education. That's because you really need to know how to apply all these theories. But a great question to ask universities on this topic is not just how hands-on of a program or college or university you are, but specifically ask what specific equipment or labs or extracurricular opportunities would I have access to, and when within my time at your institution would I be able to utilize them. For our programs, most of our core engineering classes, we don't separate the time between the lecture and the lab. That's just a unique structure we have for our program, so students get more time in the labs, and that occurs freshman through senior year. And so they're getting that experience that whole time throughout. But I would say another key question to ask is, how much time do I get with my faculty? It's really important to know when you're going into university, how much time do you get to spend with faculty, either in the classroom or one-on-one? Do they have office hours? Especially high school students don't really think about when you're going into a college, your faculty are a key resource for you for A, to understand the content, but B, help you in your career aspirations. A lot of our students take advantage of our faculty office hours. We require all of our faculty to have at least 15 hours a week where their offices are open specifically to be available for all of their students. And a lot of students don't think about that. That's great for, yeah, getting questions answered on homework, but also building a strong relationship and mentorship with a faculty member to get a strong letter of recommendation, because that's really what's going to help you build your resume and be ready when you're applying for internships and jobs. And so that's just a couple key things. I'd love to speak more with you if you have other questions for me about GCU or just engineering programs or STEM programs in general. More than happy to give you more advice. But thank you so much for your time and hope to see you in the breakout room.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. So really good advice there for students, like you mentioned, going into engineering or really any discipline, anything in science, and even not in science. Those are really good tips to really be thinking about when you're thinking about pursuing higher education. So thank you so much for sharing about that. We have about 15 minutes left. And so what I want to do with this last 15 minutes is there is a link to the live Google Slides that you can actually go through and explore and click the different objects. You got to hear from all of our wonderful experts who are here today on the call with us, but we also have some other organizations represented that you can go and you can see all of the great things that they're doing in regards to STEAM. So for example, we have the Herpetological Sanctuary, we have stormwater, you can learn about pollution, some of the other conservation organizations, Arizona Natural History Museum, the IDEA Museum, Petroglyph Preserve, City of Glendale.
Welcome to the Glendale.
Sorry, video played there, and some other organizations. And so if you would like during this time, you can feel free to go ahead and click through all the different exhibits that we have. While you're doing that, we're going to go ahead and continue with our question and answer portion of the event because we have gotten a couple of questions in the chat. And so we're going to be answering those, but during this time, feel free to also be clicking through those. It's kind of a choose your own adventure. You can listen or you can kind of do your own exploration. So first up, we do have a question for Laura, and that's how do you know when an animal is ready to be released into the wild again?
Very good question, and Vito's going to answer it. You gonna be quiet and let me talk? It actually really depends on every situation. We have about 200 to 300 volunteers helping us at Liberty Wildlife, and some of them do the Med Services program, and they've gotten a little extra training on site here. So they'll assess each patient as they come in. He would like to tell you more about it. They assess each patient and come up with a game plan. And so if it's something where it's just a baby bird that needs to grow, might be a matter of a couple of weeks. If it's something with a broken leg, we do have volunteer veterinarians that can actually do surgeries here and help them out. And it might be closer to a couple of months for them to rehabilitate and really get their strength up. So it depends on each situation, but we've got a fabulous team here that decides that for each animal.
Sorry about that technical difficulties there for a second. Thank you so much, Laura. I'm wondering that if Eric would also like to speak to that. I'm not sure, Eric, do you guys do rehabilitation programs with Arizona Game and Fish, or do you work with other organizations?
Most of what we do is working with other organizations. We do have a wildlife center that takes in some animals, but I would describe it almost as more like a triage where animals might come into, because people sometimes associate us first, and then we work heavily with Liberty and Southwest and Phoenix Herpetological and a lot of those organizations to kind of, because they have the volunteer base already and a lot of that place in place already. I will say that, unfortunately not every animal that comes in can be released back. We talked about the tortoises. There are some where their injuries are their conditions, like the case of the imprinting of the kestrel that Laura had there, that they just wouldn't survive if they went back out. And in those cases, we try to do what we can with the animals. Sometimes they get placed in zoos, or they're used for education programs, and there's strict rules that we have to use for all the animals that are in education programs that have to report back to the feds. They can only be used so much time. There's a lot of almost like labor laws associated with these animals that are in education, and care conditions and how they have to be cared for. Laura probably has more experience with that. I do know that, there's a lot that goes into like a bird being released. We have to make sure it can fly on its own, that it knows how to, if it's a hunting bird, it has to know how, can it hunt on its own? Is it going to be able to do all those things before it can actually be released? So.
So a lot of things that go into figuring out if an animal can be rehabbed. Not just do you have to care for it and get it better, but then thinking about, well, can it be released or is it at that point? There's a lot that goes into it. Really, really interesting. We also have a question that popped up for Tyler relating to student life. What are some examples of hands-on activities or experiences that engineering students might experience in college?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. And so I would start out with in-course project work. Some of the examples that come to mind, like we offer a mechanical engineering program. One of the main classes, GC or not, that you're going to be taking if you want to go into mechanical engineering is static and dynamics. Static structures, if you don't know, are just structures that are designed not to have movement. Think about like a table. A dynamic structure is like a robotic arm. It's designed to have movement. The final project for that class, students have to actually design and 3D print a wind turbine that they then get to test in our wind tunnel. And it has to create enough energy to power a small water pump. And actually a part of that project, students have a report that they have to write. I would really get into, okay, if you built this at a larger scale and place this in a remote area in a third world country, how is that going to affect the community on the sociological level, as well as the individual level? So students are thinking not just of how they can take the theories that they've learned, design something, and then create it. How are their creations actually affecting other people? Another example is a program we offer is our biomedical engineering program, which are really engineers that are improving the healthcare industry. A couple courses you'd be taking would be bioinstrumentation 1 and 2, and those are combined lecture lab courses. Bioinstrumentation 1 and lab is really students getting familiar with different commercial grade equipment within the labs, like an ultrasound device. We're one of few undergraduate biomedical engineering programs in the nation to give students access to a micro CT scanner. Those are for hard bone tissues, EKGs. You're getting familiar with these different devices because bioinstrumentation 2 and lab, you have 14 different lab projects where you are replicating various devices within the lab and then comparing your device to the industry grade device. Like the very first lab project we have in that class, students have to design and build an EKG. And then once they're done, they stick the electrodes on their arm, they plug themselves into their own device, they get a reading, they unplug, they walk over the same electrodes into the commercial grade, they plug themselves in. And then they're comparing, are there any differences between my initial reading on my device versus the commercial grade device? And if so, how can I improve my design? What am I missing or not thinking of? Because at the end of the day, with biomedical engineering, a huge area for demand of biomedical engineers is the development of healthcare devices. And so we try to get them through courses that actually give them that experience. But outside of our classes, like I said, it's very important to get involved, GC or not. Outside of the classroom, we have 7 engineering specific clubs. We have the American Society of Women Engineers, Biomedical Engineering Society, American Society of Mechanical Engineers, Society of Automotive Engineers, Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers chapter, GC Robotics, piece of VEXU, and Engineering Certain Leaders. And so there's a lot to get involved with. But to summarize, those clubs are great for either practical project-based work. So think about our Society of Automotive Engineers Club. Each year they compete in a global competition where they have to build out a scaled down Formula One race car around 90 to 95% from scratch. And then they compete against 80 other universities across the globe with their car. So they're machining out all the parts, they're building the suspension system, all the electronics for the car. That's an opportunity where students are able to put on their resume, this is an actual project I've worked on. Here's all the equipment that I've utilized, and this is really the experience I can bring to your firm. And so that's one major category of clubs. Others are professional development based. Like our Society of Women Engineers Club, they invite guest speakers from the industry, both from the Phoenix area as well as out of state representatives via Zoom to really talk about their roles, get a better understanding of what skill sets they should be thinking about building now as a student to be competitive to get into their career field. but that also opens up doors for students to be able to go to job and internship fairs held by those organizations. Sierra is a student that comes to mind. She's a sophomore in our mechanical engineering program, and she went to the Society of Women Engineers job and internship fair this past fall. That was virtual via Zoom because of COVID. But she, as a sophomore, was able to get 2 internship offers for this summer, one from Northrop Grumman, which is a major aerospace firm. She also got an internship offer with JPL, which is NASA. And her dream has been to work for NASA. And so she accepted that internship to do this summer. And that's helpful for her to be building her resume when she's prepared to graduate in a few years. And so that's just a couple examples that come to mind. But again, it's important, GC or not, to really be searching for how can I be building my resume through different opportunities, both inside and outside the classroom, so that you can be well-rounded when walking out of a engineering college.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those examples. I wish I could build an EKG machine. That sounds like an awesome experience. I have a question. I have a couple of questions. Again, we have probably about 5 minutes left. If you have any final questions you want answered, make sure to enter those into the Mentimeter. I have a question for Amy that I would love to have answered. There's a very recent current event, which was a landing on Mars, that I would love to hear a little bit about. If you have some experience or can explain what that was about, a little background on that.
I can. So, and I'm really excited you asked. You heard my tearful cry about that last week. For those of you who were living under a rock, NASA has landed a rover on Mars. It's a new rover. It's called Perseverance. And that rover is very specifically on Mars to search for signs of ancient life. So it's not looking for current life. It is looking for signs that life once existed on Mars. So we landed this rover in the Jezero crater. Well, not we, I'm not on that team, but a lot of my colleagues are on that team. And they landed this rover in this place called the Jezero crater, which we believe was a lake. On an ancient version of Mars. And so what we'll be looking for, if you guys are interested in things like geology, know that if you become a geologist, you actually can work for NASA, right? So this is an interesting time to be talking about NASA because we just talked about it. And NASA hires geologists all the time because we need someone who understands stromatolites and stalactites and, all different types of rocks, lava flow, dirt, to analyze soil composition and to analyze rocks. Okay, so this rover is going to basically act like a geocache for any of you who know what geocaching is, unless that's only for us old people. And it's going to start collecting a lot of material in the Jezero crater. And then when humans get to Mars, we'll actually be able to collect that from its little cache, right? And really analyze those things in person, but it's also doing analytical work at this time now, right? So we're already learning new things. This rover has 23 cameras on it, which is 5 more than the Curiosity rover. So if you're familiar with the Curiosity rover, you guys might not be because it launched when you were young, right? Really young. So it's been on Mars a while, right? It's had its 8th Martian birthday. So this new rover is a total upgrade, and it's doing some really fascinating things. So it's only been there a couple of days and we're already learning new things we didn't know before about the Martian surface, about the soil, about composition, about whether or not we could create oxygen on the surface of Mars. So we're learning all these new things, and it's an exciting time no matter what you do. If you want to be a meteorologist, you could have a job at NASA. If you want to be a geologist, you could have a job at NASA. If you want to be an astronomer, you can have a job, an engineer, a graphic designer, visualization specialist, right? I'm a communications specialist. My job is to take what they do and make it so everybody else can understand what they're doing. And and I don't have a degree in science, so I think that's really important to tell you guys, right? That I can work in astrophysics and be connected to NASA and talk about it, and I get to have that experience in that job, but in a different way because I am your connection to what they're doing. And so know that NASA actually employs nearly every type of job on the planet. If it is the job you can have, you probably could have it at NASA. So doctors, oceanologists, everything. If you can think it up, it probably exists. So keep that in mind.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Amy, for sharing a little bit about that current event that's kind of top of mind, and also that bit of wisdom for everybody. A lot of really great advice that we've had for students here today. I would love to hear, we have just 2 minutes left. I want to make sure that our experts each have a little opportunity to speak a little bit. Ellen, I know that you wanted everyone to go back and watch your video to learn about maybe some of what's causing flooding issues in the desert. But what's a good tip around flood control, or what's something that you think that important for students to know?
The most important thing is to stay out of floodwaters. I know that those basins look super fun and inviting when they fill up to take your kayak or your canoe or just walk through it or swim through it, but that water is super, super dirty. It's gross. It's also very dangerous. So we don't realize how heavy water is, but think about just carrying a jug, a 1 gallon jug of water. It's pretty heavy. So that water is coming down those streams and those rivers and those washers super, super fast. It may not even be raining where you are, but it was raining up in the mountains, and that water is flowing down because of gravity, right? And we live in a valley. So all that water is coming down here. It's fast. It will sweep you off your feet. It will sweep your car away like that in just an instant. So just stay out of those floodwaters. That is my biggest message.
Really important message. Dangerous and pretty gross. I think there's even like trash and dog poop and all sorts of really, really gross stuff in there.
Yep, everything that's on the ground is under that flood water.
Yuck. And Jenny, we are just about out of time, but what's one really important thing people can do to protect our air quality?
I would say the easiest tip is reduce car trips. So if that means biking, walking, if it's close enough to walk, telecommuting, if your job allows you to do that, riding public transit when people feel it's safe to do so again. The more you can reduce your use of your vehicle, we can lower emissions. So that's probably the easiest tip that I have.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here. To our wonderful experts who've shared all sorts of wisdom with us today. Thank you to the students who have logged in. You should be able to access the Google Slides presentation. If you just click present in the upper right corner, you'll be able to go through all of our slides and click. You have access to that even after today's event. So feel free to go back and spend some more time exploring. But that does conclude our event today. So again, thank you to everyone. It was wonderful interacting with you all today. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I think this is going to be the same link and the same info for your afternoon presentation. So all that's set up. And do you guys have any questions or anything else you need from us?
I don't think so. I think we're all set. Thank you so much for your
Cool.
help.
All right. Thank you.